candidates for sheriff. Now, once again, we want to welcome all of our candidates today. I also want to thank Lori Bell for helping me out today and keeping me straight on what's going on with our virtual forum. And we want to remind everybody that we're here today so the citizens of Colleton County can see our Democratic and Republican candidates for the sheriff of Colleton County for the June 9th primary. I also remind you, voting has actually already begun. It started, you can do it Monday through Friday from 8 until 5 at the voter registration office. You can actually go this afternoon before 5 if you'd like. Now, with the restrictions in place for the COVID-19, a public forum or debate was not possible. Therefore, the Republican and Democratic parties and the NAACP have coordinated efforts to present the candidates forum for the citizens of Colleton County. Now, the forum is taking place in the gallery of the Colleton County Civic Center. The two political parties and the NAACP appreciate the use of this facility for this venue. We extend our appreciation to the Colleton County Administrator, Kevin Griffin, and Matt Mardell, and also the Technology Department of the county and PRTC for their support in this endeavor. Now, once again, this forum is going to feature, well, it has featured 3 Democratic candidates and 5 Republican candidates. The Democratic candidates were in, once again, part 1 of this virtual forum. We will now hear and feature from the 5 Republican candidates. Now, in this format, this is the format that we will follow for part 2 of the forum with the 5 Republican candidates. Now, the 5 candidates are Anthony Buchanan, which will be candidate number 1, Mark Cobb, candidate number 2, Buddy Hill, candidate number 3, Dolphus Pinckney, candidate number 4, and Craig Steininger, candidate number 5. Now, the 5 candidates are seated in the tables in alphabetical order, and the candidates are numbered alphabetically 1 through 5. Throughout the format, candidates will refrain from personal attacks on another candidate. Now, a timekeeper is seated in the front of the candidates on camera. The timekeeper will raise a yellow card to signify 1 minute when 1 minute has expired, and a red card to signify the expiration of 2 minutes. The candidates will remain seated to introduce themselves and respond to questions. Each candidate will be given 1 minute for a personal introduction and to share what he hopes to accomplish in operating and or improving the Sheriff's Department. Following the introductions, 2 questions that were given to the candidates in advance of the forum will be given to each candidate. Each question will be posed in a round-robin fashion, meaning that candidates 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 will answer the first question in that order, and then candidates 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 will answer the second question. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. Following these 2 questions, then I will present these questions 3 and 4. Now, these questions, these are questions that the candidates have not seen in advance. Once again, they've seen questions 1 and 2 in advance, 3 and 4 they have not. For questions 3, candidates 3, 4, 5, 1, and 2 will answer in that order. And for question 4, candidates 4, 5, 1, 2, and 3 will answer in that order. After all 4 questions have been completed, each candidate will have 1 minute for a conclusion that should include 3 primary goals that the candidate would pursue if elected sheriff. Once again, for that conclusion, that will be 1 minute with 3 primary goals for each candidate. The candidates will conclude in the same order as with the introductions, with candidates 1 through 5. At that point, our forum will be over. Once again, thank you for joining us for this virtual forum as we look at the candidates running for Colleton County Sheriff, and we're looking at the Republicans now. All right, let's begin with our introductions, and once again, we will ask each candidate to introduce themselves, what he or she hopes to accomplish, well, at this point, what he would hope to accomplish in operating and or improving the Sheriff's Department. And we're going to begin once again with candidate number 1, Anthony Buchanan. Once again, introduce yourself, please, Mr. Buchanan, and tell us about what you would like to hope and accomplish if you become sheriff.
My name is Anthony Buchanan. I've been in law enforcement 19 years. I'm a citizen of Colleton County. I've been here 20 years. What I want to accomplish is I want to give the citizens of Colleton County more protection than what they have now. We need to make sure we have more deputies on the road. We also need to make sure that we can get a hold on the gang and the narcotics issue that we have in the county. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Buchanan. next, our candidate for the Republican part of the Sheriff of Colleton County is Mr. Mark Cobb. Mr. Cobb, once again, please introduce yourself and also let us know about what you hope to accomplish in operating and or improving the Sheriff's Department. Mr. Cobb.
Hello, my name is Mark Cobb. I'm 41 years old. I served 2 enlistments in the United States Army as a non-commissioned officer and have 18 years of law enforcement experience with the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office. Throughout my time at the Sheriff's Office, I was a part of and supervised almost every special team there was there, the K-9 unit, SWAT team, bomb squad, and dive team. I was truly fortunate to have the opportunity to attend several federal and state organizations to include FBI, DEA, and ATF training. I'm a successful business owner, having formed a business in 2009 where we train law enforcement, private security, and citizens. I'm not originally from Colleton County, and having moved my family and business here several years ago. I feel that the status as a newcomer allows me the opportunity to have an impartial view of the Sheriff's Office and the residents of Colleton County. I will always lead by example, and I will always hold myself and my subordinates to the highest account possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Up next is candidate Buddy Hill, and once again, Buddy, please let everyone know what you hope to accomplish in operating and or improving the Sheriff's Department, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. My name is Buddy Hill. I'm 59 years old and I'm a lifelong resident of Colleton County. I've been married to Becky Hill for 36 years. We have 2 daughters and 6 grandchildren. I have nearly 30 years of law enforcement experience, starting with South Carolina Department of Resources as a DWCO, then to the Sheriff's Office and with the City Police Department. My goals as your sheriff are to attack our community's drug problem from the top to the bottom by expanding the narcotics team being formed by Sheriff Gint, to build a strong relationship of trust of our community, not through only words, but more importantly through our actions. To have more deputies patrolling our communities, keeping us safe at all times, and to expand the current DARE program into the middle and high school. Educating our young people is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Up next is candidate Dolphus Pinckney, and once again, Mr. Pinckney, please introduce yourself and let us know about what you hope to accomplish in operating and or improving the Sheriff's Department. Once again, Mr. Pinckney.
Good evening. My name is Dolphus Pinckney. First, I want to thank God for giving me the opportunity to be a Republican candidate for Sheriff of Colleton County. I'm a lifelong resident here. My wife lives here. I raised my family here. I have 28 years of law enforcement experience. I've worked over the years with the City Police Department and at the Colleton County Sheriff's Office, just about every division. If I hadn't worked that division, I was over the division. I would like to have more people on the road, do a lot more improvements in trying to help people in the community that needs the help. And I don't have to do this, but the people in Colleton County deserve better. And they will get better, meeting your sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. Our next candidate, once again, for sheriff is Mr. Craig Stivinger. Mr. Stivinger, once again, introduce yourself and let us know about what you hope to accomplish in operating and or improving the Sheriff's Department. Mr. Stivinger.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Stivinger. I'm a lifelong resident of Colleton County. My wife, Rebecca Stivinger, and I have 3 children together. Several goals I have and what I've spoken about continually is cleaning up Colleton County. That's been my campaign slogan all along. I want to clean up the issues that we have, starting internally with the Sheriff's Department by cleaning up the command staff. I will come in day one with a new command staff. I feel like we can start from the top with the leadership and work our way down in order to make the Sheriff's Department better. Secondly, externally, I have a goal of cleaning up the drug problem. That's my #1 goal as Sheriff of Colleton County, is cleaning up drug problem. I have the experience necessary. I worked a good part of my career as a narcotics officer in this county, and I know what it's going to take to clean up that problem. What I'd like to say is 2 Samuel 23:3 says that he that ruleth over men must be just, ruling in the fear of God. I'm a God-fearing man. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Stivinger. And once again, we're going to start with question number 1. The candidates will answer in the order that we originally said. It will be candidates 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They will answer in that order. Here's question number 1. School-based resource officers impact the lives and safety of children, teens, and educators. Please provide some specifics on how you would assign SROs at their different levels, as well as the experience and traits that these officers should have for each level, considering the difference in elementary versus high school students. And once again, we'll start with number one, Mr. Anthony Buchanan. Mr. Buchanan.
I feel like our problems with our gangs and our drugs on the street start in the schools. I think our SROs, other than the training that they get at the academy, they also need to take a 2-week class with the Association of SROs in South Carolina. Also, the DARE program, which what the DARE program is, it is drugs abuse resistance. Okay, we have to teach children how to resist drugs and violence. There's also another, and I want my SROs to be trained in that to where they can give classes at the school. Another good class would be a GREAT, it's G-R-E-A-T, and that is gang resistance. Okay, and then what that covers is gangs on the streets and bullying. SROs need to be, trained in that to where they can teach classes. Also, Alive at 25. Alive at 25 is our young generation to where they texting and driving, they need to learn how to drive and need to know what the rules of the road and everything are. I think we need to have SROs that need to be trained in Alive at 25. The school age and children, the SRO that would be serving is based on what the SRO is comfortable with. Some SROs are comfortable with younger children, some are with, older children. And that's what, whatever's beneficial for the students and the staff at the school, that's what I would implement.
And thank you, Mr. Buchanan. Up next, same question is going to go to Mr. Mark Cobb. Mr. Cobb, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, sir, that's not necessary, thank you. With our current COVID-19 situation and school shutdowns, many parents have had to homeschool their kids. I think we all learned a pretty valuable lesson about how important teachers are from that. The same is true for our school resource officers and SROs. These are incredibly special officers with an important set of duties. Not only are our first line of defense for our loved ones, but they're usually the first encounter that most kids will have with law enforcement. It's very crucial we have the right officers selected for that position. In many departments, SROs are usually determined based on the fact that they are women or at an early age for retirement or close to retirement. I think that needs to be changed a little bit. If elected as Colleton County Sheriff, I want to make sure these officers are handpicked based on their willingness to do this job, to take on this task. And again, special officers are needed for this position. School assignments will be based on their request to do this position, the training, their experience, and knowledge of juvenile laws and procedures. Not only would mental and physical fitness be determined as well in their school assignments. I would also like to have RSOs attend national training, for instance, such as the NAMI organization, which is the National Alliance for Mental Illness. I think these organizations would help our SROs in the ability to help identify early signs of mental illness, depression, or abuse with our kids. Would help out a lot. Lastly, I'd like to have our SROs work closely with our investigations department. I feel that a lot of our petty crimes that take place, especially during the summertime, are committed by juveniles or those recently out of the school system. Our SROs having first-hand knowledge of those kids would help in aiding those, solving those petty crimes, and help later on with guiding those kids out of the criminal justice system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Up next is candidate Buddy Hill. Mr. Hill, once again, it's going to be the same question. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, sir, that's okay. When choosing a school resource officer, that deputy needs to be specifically motivated to do that job. For that reason, I would be publishing or advertising this within the department. That school resource officer, he has to be somebody who can, or she has to be somebody who can be a counselor, teacher, or law enforcement officer. You look for an officer who has the personality and the temperament to mentor, to be kind and caring to children, approachable. Also someone that can quickly become a tactical cop if necessary. Their job is to keep order on campus, to gain the trust of the students, the parents, and the teachers, to be firm but fair with everybody. This is why, as sheriff, getting to know your employees and getting to communicate with your employees on a one-on-one basis is so important. I know from personal experience as a parent, I coach youth sports from t-ball and micro soccer up till high school. And I myself was specifically motivated, or I was more so inclined to the older students. That's why it's important to get to know your people, know where they want to be placed. And I will also be training my school resource officers. They will train with my SWAT team on tactics and movements and on proficiency with firearms. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Our next candidate up is Mr. Dolphus Pinckney. Mr. Pinckney, it will be the same question. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, sir. Having been a certified advanced SRO, a school resource officer, I do know it's a calling. It takes a very special person. For some kids in school, the school is their safe haven. You're dealing with kids from all walks of life. When the SROs are assigned to school, they need to be there permanent, so the kids can get some stability. Also, the SRO should build trust with the kids, shed a positive light on law enforcement. The elementary SRO should deal with these kids they're very impressionable. This is the reach one, teach one stage. SRO need to be kid friendly and experienced, mother hen, so to speak, fatherly figure. SRO needs to have lots of patience. These kids need to feel safe and loved. Middle school, dealing with adolescence. Stage where these kids become teenagers. SRO needs to be well experienced, have lots of patience, a mediator, a good listener, stern and firm. In high school, very critical stage for the teenagers. They're trying to find themselves. They're searching for a sense of belonging and self-worth. Peer pressure, they are experiencing. Relationship breakups, friendship breakups, stage where they can't see past what they're going through. The SRO need to be a seasoned officer, stern and firm, a mentor, a role model, and a good listener and a mediator. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. Our next candidate is Greg Stivender. Mr. Stivender, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you, sir. First off, I have 3 children that attend the public school in Colleton County. Next year I'll have 1 in elementary, 1 in middle, and 1 in high school, so I know how important it is to have a different level of SRO in every part of that. What I'll say first off is I will allow people also to apply for that position. I think it's a calling that people should want to put in for that position. It shouldn't be something that has historically been done to just place officers there to fill a position. Secondly, I have announced already that my secondary will be Marshall Moorhead as my chief deputy. Marshall Moorhead was a certified SRO as well as a DARE officer. He brings a lot to the table when it comes to SRO. He knows a lot of what it needs to do. That's why we work as a team to try to better our department as a whole. What I will say is that I feel like we have not gone to the administrators and the teachers nearly enough in the past and asked them, what is it going to take for our SROs to help you better your school? A lot of times we just go in there and say, well, this is what we're going to do, but as a sheriff, I will go to the administration and find out what it is that we can do to better their school for them. I have already started this by attending these school board meetings. I've been regularly attending school board meetings for the past year to try to find out what are some of the problems that are going on in our schools and what we can do to better those through our SROs. My SROs will be certified. I also want to bring back the DARE programs, the great program that Tony spoke about. I think it's also good for these young children to learn about the gang issues earlier on in life. I also will have my SROs participate in the 14th Circuit Alcohol Enforcement Team, which will provide an increased opportunity for alcohol enforcement education programs for these children to learn at a young age that alcohol can devastate lives. It can also give them opportunities that they wouldn't normally get. Thank you.
All right, once again, thank you, Mr. Stivender. Our next question, keeping with our round robin format, we'll start with candidate number 2, which is Mr. Mark Cobb. Mr. Cobb, gangs, drug-related activities, shooting, etc., continue to cause the citizens of Colleton County concern. Please explain the policies and efforts that can be or need to be implemented to curtail or curb these issues, Mr. Cobb?
First, let's look at the common traits of these incidents. Drugs and drug-related activities are at the root of major crimes in Colleton County. Okay? You have users, sellers, distributors, manufacturers of both legal and prescribed narcotics. The question you as a community want to know is, what are we going to do about it? That's a fair question. You're going to hear a lot about starting a narcotics team or an anti-gang unit. And although it sounds great as an immediate action, it's not a practical approach for our current department. We have around 4 to 6 officers answering calls covering 1,100 square miles, and an investigation unit that's backlogged with cases. It's not fiscally or physically responsible to divert sources away from our mandatory mission, which is public safety. What is possible, and what I would like to do, which is both practical, money-saving, and proven to be effective, is this. I would like to ensure our officers are receiving advanced training in not only drug enforcement practices and gang recognition for our investigations, but also our officers are on patrol. They're encountering these people every single day, the users, the distributors, stuff. So giving them the tools they need to conduct a successful identification, apprehension, and successful prosecution would help out with that. Okay. Secondly, I want to educate the public, making sure that they are successful in taking their communities back. Okay. With free training through the department on identifying criminal behavior, information gathering, and reporting processes, we will gain a crucial ally, which is the public, in helping us combat these crime-driven areas and narcotic-driven areas. Lastly, I'd like to improve mutual aid with our neighboring departments. Colleton County has limited resources, and by restoring these mutual aids and growing on them, we'll be able to build a successful multi-jurisdictional task force or drug team that would help us be successful. Also, by improving our reserve deputy program is another way to gain officers at a minimal cost. The state allows us 1 reserve deputy for every sworn officer, which would essentially allow us to double our police force or sheriff's department for the cost of equipment training alone. I feel if we create and follow sound policies and procedures, and with proactive community policing practices, we can successfully curb narcotics in Colleton County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Up next for question number 2 is Mr. Buddy Hill. Mr. Hill, it's the same question, but would you like me to repeat it?
No, sir, that's okay. As I said before, I will expand the narcotics unit being formed by Sheriff Young. And in doing that, we will also continue to partner with local, state, and federal agencies to utilize their resources as much as we possibly can. And this is a mutual problem. We have to attack it from the top to the bottom. I will work hard to gain and maintain the trust of the community by having regular community meetings in the different areas throughout the county, to hear their concerns firsthand and address those concerns promptly, because nobody knows what goes on in your neighborhood better than you do. I will work to put more deputies into community patrolling. What this will do is to narrow down our zones, which gives those officers more time to patrol, to get to know the people in their community, more of a community-based policing type theory. I will continue the DARE program in our elementary schools and also expand that into the middle and high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Up next for the same question, question number 2 is Mr. Dolphus Pinckney. Mr. Pinckney, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, sir. Having the knowledge and experience of heading up Walmart Police Department's first narcotic unit, as well as working with the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office Undercover Drug Task Force Unit, I have the experience and knowledge to put together a task force and a drug unit at the Sheriff's Office. I would also implement a drug task force unit, a gang task force unit also. It is my belief that we as a community must figure out the root of the problem. Why do we have gangs? Youth gangs, they're looking for protection. They're looking for money, respect, friendship. Why do we need to prevent these gangs that leads to shooting? To prevent the gangs, communities must strengthen families, and school must improve community supervision. Train parents, manage disruptive youth, and teach students behavioral skills. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. Up next, our candidate for question number 2 will be Mr. Craig Stavender. Mr. Stavender, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you. Having not only worked narcotics undercover full-time Also supervised the narcotics unit for the city of Walterboro. I feel like I have the necessary experience. I've worked with local, state, and federal agencies to make numerous cases and narcotic purchases in our county. I already am familiar with all of our local gangs. I was part of the unit that helped when we first started identifying some of the local gangs, and we were having problems back in the early 2000s. So I'm very familiar with the local gangs we already have. I think that what I've already spoken about, which is the DARE program and the GREAT program, we have to start from the basics. We have to start teaching these children at an early age that it's not acceptable to be part of gangs. It's not acceptable to be drugged, to not use drugs. We need to be drug free. So we have to teach from an early age in order to get back to the basics. And as far as enforcement, I will start a multi-jurisdictional drug unit if it has not already been put in place by Sheriff Kent by that time. If it is, then I will enhance on it. I feel like my experience that I have here, I already know who I want in those positions and what it's going to take and equipment-wise and what we've lacked. I know that the residents can already see over the past 3 years since the full-time narcotics unit was disbanded that we've already started to have increased problems. So to say that we don't need a drug enforcement unit immediately, you would be ignoring the fact that we've already had problems. We need to get on that as soon as possible so that we can fix the problem that causes 99% of the problems in our county, which is drugs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stivender. And up next is candidate Mr. Anthony Buchanan. And once again, it's for question number 2. It's the same question, Mr. Buchanan. Would you like me to repeat it?
No, sir. First and foremost, we need to get more deputies on the road. You know, people need to realize that, you know, the sheriff and the lowest deputy, what are they first? They're deputies. The sheriff can get out here and work just like every other deputy that's on the road working. The more people you put on the road, the more you're going to get out there and be seen, and you're going to slow down a lot of the drug activity and the gang activity that's going on our streets. If I'm elected sheriff, I will have a meeting with the doctors and the pharmacists in the area. I will bring them in, and we will sit down and talk about it, because I feel that this starts with the opioid problem, where our drugs start at, and it goes from there. If you get your doctors and your pharmacists on board, I mean, it's not anybody can come up the interstate and just stop in and say, hey, I feel bad, and they get narcotics, and they give it to them, and they go up the road and sell them. There's a lot of selling of opioids on our streets in Colleton County. And I agree with, you know, the DARE program and the GREAT program. You know, you have to put that in our schools and let our children and our youth realize what's happening once they get out of school. I think that sheriff's department officers deputies need to be mentors. They need to go to these single parent homes, talk to them, be a big brother or a big sister to them. You know, when I was a child, I remember there was a big brother, big sister organization. If you was an only child and you didn't have a father, they would come in and they would be your big brother, and they would, pretty much help raise you and try to show you the right way. You know, if we don't get this stuff into our schools, we are, we're not being, true to our children and our youth that's growing up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buchanan. And up next, it's question number 3, and starting off with question number 3 is going to be candidate Buddy Hill. Mr. Hill, unfortunately, South Carolina has received national recognition for a high incidence of violence against women. What is the role of the Sheriff's Department and law enforcement in creating safe communities for women and girls, Mr. Hill?
Well, the first thing is South Carolina did enhance their domestic violence laws. What that means is now, whether the female or the male doesn't want to prosecute, it's been taken out of their hands. It's law enforcement's job to step in and make those charges and follow through with the prosecution. There's educational programs out there for women, for spouses, I should say, because not all the time is it a woman that's the victim of abuse. But it's law enforcement's responsibility to follow up on these, to do a thorough job, just like if it was any crime out there. We have to follow through with the prosecution, We have to make sure we got a good solid case so our solicitor's office can prosecute properly and get convictions. We have to make sure that we follow up with the victims through our victims advocates, make sure that they're taken care of properly. And, thank you. That's,
You can keep going.
no, that's all right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. And up next, our candidate is candidate number 4, Mr. Adolphus Pinckney. Mr. Pinckney, it's the same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Yes, sir, repeat the question.
All right. Mr. Pinckney, unfortunately, South Carolina has received national recognition for a high incidence of violence against women. What is the role of the Sheriff's Department and law enforcement in creating safe communities for women and girls?
Okay. Well, as a law enforcement officer, I've been on countless calls of domestic problems, domestic disputes, domestic abuse. A lot of times when you get there to the scene, you know, that the female don't want to do anything because the guy's the breadwinner. So she don't want to leave, they got kids, so she don't say anything. As a law enforcement officer, you must do a thorough job, make sure that you see who is the primary aggressor. Most of the time, hate to say it's the man. If that's the case, you need to remove him from the premises, put him in jail. On the other hand, we need, as Mr. Hill said, we need to do some educational programs to help men and women. South Carolina, as you know, for many, many years, we stayed in the top 10, if not number 1, for domestic problems. I think as the sheriff's office, as myself and deputies, we need to go out in the community and talk with these people and try to help them. If they have a problem, hopefully that officer, they will entrust what's going on in that house, tell them what's going on, and we can try to resolve the issue or get the wife or husband or whomever out of that situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. Up next is, once again, candidate number 5, Mr. Craig Stuyvesant. Mr. Stuyvesant, it is the same question. Would you like me to repeat it?
Sure.
All right. Once again, unfortunately, South Carolina has received national recognition for a high incidence of violence against women. What is the role of the Sheriff's Department and law enforcement in creating safe communities for women and girls? Mr. Stuyvesant.
So first and foremost, I'd like to say that domestic violence affects all members of the family, not only women and young women, but also boys, fathers. It's all across the board. What I think we need to do to start with is have deputies who care and are concerned about the citizens of the county, and that starts from the leadership at the top, is to showing that you care, responding to scenes and actually separating these parties and trying to work through their problems and helping them. I think we also need to promote programs such as counseling, churches, different things, so that these families can work through their problems instead of just taking someone to jail, which is unfortunately sometimes an option that we cannot avoid because the state says we must make an arrest if there are physical manifestations of a crime. We should be able to have other options to try to help these families out, to bring these families back together to work through this instead of trying to destroy families by just putting people in jail. Having the opportunity to have worked with some great victims advocates in the past, my sister Amy Stuyvesant, which is one of them, Denise Pinckney, which is Duffus's wife as well, I have seen how important it is to have a good victims advocates to have the resources and abilities to offer places that we can put these family members, may they be female or male, they can get them out of these situations and get them into safety. I've also taken the opportunity to speak with some local churches, and I know one in particular that's working on trying to have a house that will be for maybe a battered women's shelter and also a homeless shelter for people who are in danger or who need to be taken out of a situation and don't have anywhere to go, because a lot of times these people feel like the reason why they stay is because they don't have anywhere else to go. They don't have any other options. So if we can provide them an option and give them a way out, then sometimes that's the best option we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stavanger. Our next candidate up for question number 3 is Mr. Anthony Buchanan. Mr. Buchanan, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, sir, I'm good, thank you. Well, first and foremost, we have to get deputies out there and officers that will go out and do their job, okay? That will document the paperwork the way it is. We have lazy officers. My wife, Melanie Buchanan, works at the magistrate court, and I hear about it all the time, where deputies don't know what they're doing. They need to be educated on the DV law. The sheriff's department needs to do their job. You need to hold your deputies to a higher standard, and you need to make sure they're doing their job. They've got to be held liable for the job they're doing. As far as law enforcement, I feel we make an arrest, but our judicial system lets us down. Your judges and stuff, they don't push the issue like they're supposed to. If a female gets injured or a female gets hurt and she doesn't want to press charges, it's pretty much, hey, she don't want to press charges, so we're just going to let this person go. I feel that's wrong. I feel we need to sit down with our lawmakers, and we need a stronger DV law to where it's going to stick. I mean, I've known people that's been CDV, that's been convicted and still on the gun, because they get it expunged or they don't go through with it, the partner don't go through with it. You've got to educate people on the DV it starts out as a physical or mental abuse, yelling and screaming, then it's physical when somebody dies. And that's what I tell people every time when I go to a domestic violence case. I say, hey, next time I come out here, you may be dead. I mean, he's going to jail tonight, or you're going to jail tonight. And, it's a sad situation that we can't get the judicial system on board with us. We can't get the judges and stuff to where they're on board with law enforcement. So we need to do something to, bridge that gap between them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buchanan. And up next for question number 3 is candidate Mark Cobb. Mr. Cobb, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, sir, no, thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, a lot of my fellow candidates here have addressed a lot of the major concerns that we need to implement as a county. A couple things I'd like to add is advanced officer training. We have to make sure our officers understand the DV laws properly. A lot of the training entails just watching a video and going about your daily business. We've got to make sure that we are bringing in experts. We are bringing in people who are involved in this community of abuse, and make sure our officers completely understand the ramifications of abuse in a family, of abuse to a woman. And their children, like they said, it affects the entire family. I'd also like to work with our medical staff in the area and helping them learn how to properly process and how to properly collect evidence for these scenes and for these possible abuses, especially ones that involve sexual misconduct or sexual abuse. Working with them will help us make a solid case and help us with prosecution of that. I also feel it's important for Colleton County to make sure that we implement and or create these facilities and shelters for our family members, for these abuse victims, okay? Having none within the local area, I know there's a few that are being brought in, but it takes time. And right now, they have to leave their county, leave their home, leave what's familiar to them to get help and to find shelter, which is not practical in almost any family. No one can just uproot, depending on the situation, okay? So having something locally, having something we can provide for them would be paramount. Also, providing free training in self-defense. I know we have some programs going on now through the Sheriff's Office, and I think they're fantastic. I'd like to improve on those and make sure that we can provide free training to people as far as, basic self-defense needs or how to properly defend yourself or just situational awareness things. Anything we can do to provide free training or free education to the public, I think would be paramount. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Up next is our last question for, once again, this virtual format that we're having today, and it's question number 4. Up first is going to be candidate number 4, which is Mr. Dolphus Pinckney. Mr. Pinckney, if the department were to receive a $500,000 unrestricted grant, what would be your 3 top priorities for funding? Once again, Mr. Pinckney.
Thank you. first of all, you have to build trust between the citizens and the sheriff's office. So I would implement some programs that would, involve the community, investing in my officers, with more education, more funding to, do more, things for the community, ensure that. And the last thing I would want to say is, I want to ensure that everyone have a seat at the table at the sheriff's office. I want everybody to work together. There's just this big disconnect between the sheriff's office and the citizens. So, with some of this money, hopefully that we can, get some programs together and work together and work things out, that when someone comes through this town, off the interstate or out of town, and says, oh, the front porch of the low country, this is a great place for me to stop and, maybe even live here and raise my family here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. Next for question number 4 is candidate number 5. Once again, Mr. Craig Stivender. Mr. Stivender, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thanks. First and foremost, if we receive $500,000 in money that was given to us as a grant, I have several different things that I'd like to use that money on. Number one would be equipment for the deputies that actually work every day. Knowing from working the road in Colleton County, I know what it's like to be a deputy and not have the equipment you need to get the job done. Having broken equipment, torn up equipment, worn out equipment, it's hard to do your job if you don't have the proper equipment necessary to get the job done. Also, you know, that goes along the lines of getting my narcotics unit and different units, the specialized equipment that they will need to get the job done for the citizens of Colleton County. So equipment would be number one on my list. Number two would be educational supplies for our school. In order to teach these children and educate them, we have to be able to get into school and educate. We have to have equipment, and we have to be able to order supplies and DVDs and programs and offer them things that they can use. Thirdly, I would use that money for advanced training for our officers. I know when I was on the road, we had to beg, borrow, and steal to be able to get to go to one class a year. You know, most of the time, 2 classes or more were reserved for officers that were in the command staff that necessarily didn't need them, and I've always seen that. So what I would say was I would want to give my officers more training necessary for what they do every day. They need the most training possible. I would use that money for my officers.
Thank you, Mr. Stivender. Our next candidate up for question number 4 is Mr. Anthony Buchanan. Mr. Buchanan, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, sir, thank you. I agree with Mr. Stein. Our officers definitely need the proper equipment so they can do their job, you know, safely. Also, I would start some programs for our youth in the schools and stuff like that. I would implement something to where we'd have an after-school program, have officers come in and teach them about, you know, right from wrong. They may not be getting it at home. You know, I've seen a lot of people in this county that, you know, it's a one-parent home, and the children they just let the children run wild in the streets. And everything starts at home. If we can start it in the schools, if we can get things set up to where they can stay off the streets, come and play basketball, football, flag football, something like that, something we can get the children to come to. And also, you know, domestic violence. I would definitely utilize some money for domestic violence, especially for battered women. I know Mr. Cobb here said something about setting up a shelter or something like that. You know, maybe we could set up a shelter and get volunteers to help us out. You know, man, you know, when we run out of that money. But I think we need to spend most of the money on, you know, our citizens of Colleton County to make sure they're safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buchanan. Next for question number 4 is candidate number 2, Mr. Mark Cobb. Mr. Cobb, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you, sir, I appreciate it. With this grant, obviously, that would be fantastic for us to get. One of the first things I'd like to do is improve our Explorer program and our Reserve Deputy program. Speaking of programs for our youth, the Explorer program is one of the few free programs that we have in Colleton County for our youth. This program is fantastic. It helps as a stepping stone for any children or kids that are interested in law enforcement's career. It's also a great place for us to recruit from once they become of age. And our Reserve Deputy program is another fantastic way to get officers to come and help us on the street with minimal expenses aside from training and equipment. Second, I'd like to improve our K-9. I feel like K-9 organization is a fantastic way for us to implement not only support for our road units, but also for any narcotics teams that we'll be creating in the future. It's a vital tool that we could have, and I think that it would be a great addition to the Sheriff's Department to improve upon. Lastly, I'd like to work on a Citizens Police Academy. And this is something that is not my own creation, but I've been a part of one, and they're fantastic organizations that provides free training to the civilians and to the citizens of Colleton County. It allows them an inside look within our Sheriff's Office. It allows them to come in and see about how investigations work and or how officers do their daily duties. It helps dispel a lot of misnomers and myths that we have about law enforcement, especially from watching CSI, like my mom, she's horrible at that. But, it all helps with those problems and stuff and dispelling those myths. And that would be the three things that I would like to work that grant on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Up next for question number 4 is candidate number 3, Mr. Buddy Hill. Mr. Hill, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, sir, that's okay. I also agree that a portion of that money would be spent on equipment, upgrading some of the things we have, advanced training for our officers in various divisions, having them trained in their specialized divisions. Also the K-9, that's something that's near and dear to my heart. Not only patrol dogs, but I would love to start a K-9 bloodhound tracking team again. Also, some of the money I feel like would need to be spent toward programs geared toward children. We do things at the office now, like trunk or treat and those type things, but I think there's more that can be done as far as interaction with officers and children. Those are some of the things I would spend that money on.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. And now we're coming to the conclusion, once again, of our virtual forum that we're doing today. And what we're going to do is give each candidate 1 minute to conclude with a suggestion that you give 3 primary goals that you would do if you were elected sheriff. Now, we'll start with candidate number 1, and that is candidate Mr. Anthony Buchanan. Mr. Buchanan.
First and foremost, we've all sat here and said it today, we need to put more deputies on the road. We have 1,100 square mile county, 4 deputies, 5 deputies, the response time is crazy. Okay, second of all, we need to make sure our youth in school, we need to make sure our schools are protected, and we put the DARE program and the GREAT program in. Third is we need to bridge a gap between the citizens of Colleton County and law enforcement, Sheriff's Department all together. We need to bring the citizens in, they're our eyes on the street, and right now they won't talk to nobody. We need to bridge that gap between them and let them know, hey, we're here for you. We want to make a change, but we're going to need your help too as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buchanan. Up next is candidate number 2, Mr. Mark Cobb. Mr. Cobb.
Again, my name is Mark Cobb, and I want to thank you all for viewing this forum. I hope you all continue to seek questions and any answers you may have. I'd like to leave you with my several goals that I have on election. First, I will restore your trust to the Sheriff's Office. Second, I want to involve the community in our office through citizens training, reserve officer, and Explorer officer programs and community policing. Lastly, I want to show the citizens of Colleton County that law enforcement is truly about serving others. Election, I plan on giving this county my complete devotion. I'll work for you and vow to uphold the freedoms that are set forth in our Constitution. I will protect you from government overreach and any unlawful overs. I take my sworn oath very seriously and expect you to hold me accountable. This election is a crucial time in our county's history, and to make sure you're basing your decision based on the right person for the job, not for any relationships or any favors maybe do for you. This is your Sheriff's Office, and I hope you take it back. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. Up next is candidate number 3, Mr. Buddy Hill. Mr. Hill.
I would like to thank the Democratic Party and the Republican Party and the NAACP for having us here today. I'd also like people who are watching. I have been said before, my 3 goals or 4 goals: to attack the community's drug problem, to build a strong relationship of trust with our community, to have more deputies patrolling our community, and to expand on our DARE program. I've been blessed to have had the opportunity to get the training, gain the experience and the maturity, not only to run for the office, but to lead the personnel and manage your sheriff's office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Up next for the conclusion, it's contestant number 4, Mr. Dolphus Pinckney. Mr. Pinckney.
Thank you. Me, as your sheriff, you can count on me to be accountable to you, the citizens of Colleton County, accessible and transparent. And I and my deputies will do the right thing when no one is looking. I'd like to implement the community policing throughout all the communities in Colleton County, where we'll have an officer in that community, building that trust, building that bridge, and standing in the gap for the citizens. I will tackle the drug problem and the gang problems in Colleton County. And we do need more deputies on the road. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. And then once again, for the conclusion, it's candidate number 5, Mr. Craig Stuyvesant. Mr. Stuyvesant.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Craig Stuyvesant. I'd like to close by saying 3 of my other goals that I want to, if you had the opportunity to listen to myself and my Chief Deputy Marshal Moorhead about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we talked about a Citizens Police Academy, which is something that we will enact immediately to get our citizens more involved. So when we have hostile environments, the citizens can be more involved and know what it is that these officers are going through. Also want to build my reserve program. I've been contacted by numerous people here recently that said that they've tried to get on with the reserve program for years and just they've always been pushed aside. I want to build a strong reserve program to help our officers get more uniforms on the street. Lastly, I want to restore the integrity back to the Sheriff's Department. I want a Sheriff's Department that can be respected and something that people can look up to, especially children. I'd like to close by saying, in honor of Reverend Buck Reeves, who just passed away this week, he was an ex-employee of the Sheriff's Department. I'd like to close with his one of his favorite verses, which is Romans 10:9. It says that if thou wilt confess the Lord Christ with your mouth and believe in your heart that he died for your sins, thou shalt be saved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stavanger. Once again, I want to thank all of our Republican candidates today for the running for candidate for sheriff, Mr. Anthony Buchanan, Mr. Mark Cobb, Mr. Buddy Hill, Mr. Dolphus Pinckney, Mr. Craig Stavanger. I also want to thank from part 1 of our virtual forum today, the Democrats that were able to be here, Ms. Elisa Bodison, Mr. Arthur Jordan, and Mr. Harold Lowry. Once again, you've been watching a very special virtual forum for Democrat and Republican candidates for the Colleton County Sheriff's Department, coordinated and sponsored by the Colleton County Democratic and Republican parties and the NAACP. I want to thank Lori Bell for helping me and make sure I stay straight, Ms. Blocker for inviting me. Also want to thank Jason Cook from PRTC and everyone that was here. We're reminding everybody that the Democratic and Republican candidates for sheriff, they're going to have a special primary that will be coming on June 9th. And remind you that voting has already started Monday through Friday from 8 until 5. You can do this at the voter registration office. Also want to extend a very special appreciation to the Colleton County Administrator Kevin Griffin, Matt Mardell, and the Technology Department of the county and PRTC for their support in this endeavor. Once again, you've been watching part 2 of the virtual forum for the Democratic and Republican candidates for the Sheriff of Colleton County. Thank you for joining us. I'm Miles Crosby. Have a blessed day and a blessed evening.